I'm going to show you how to make one of my all-time favorite breakfast items, the omelet. Hi, I'm Trevor. I'm a chef technologist at George Brown College in Toronto, and I got into cooking at a young age of 15 because I really love working with food. One of the best parts about my career has been competing in culinary competitions. I think chefs have this natural competitive sort of spirit that really pushes us and drives, and during the pandemic it's a little challenging for us because we're maybe stuck at home and we don't have that opportunity to get out there and to really push ourselves like we normally would. But there's kind of two ways to look at this. You can take the opportunity to step back and honestly just slow down a little bit. I think so many times when we're in our restaurants and hotels, we do things so quickly without really spending the time and the effort on really reflecting and thinking and asking more of the why questions. We find ourselves always just pushing things out as quickly as possible. It's very rare that we have an opportunity to step back and really analyze, like, why do we do certain things? Like, what are all the things that we can do now that we couldn't do before, right? So I think in a lot of ways there are opportunities to work on yourself. And if I was going to give any advice to a chef or a young cook or anybody in the culinary industry, hospitality industry, is really to invest in yourself, right? Take the time to learn more. And also, one thing that gets overlooked is training your palate. People have this idea that you're born with a good palate, or you either have it or you don't. That's not true. Everybody can train their palate. So what I mean by that is every time that you open up a jar of spices, for example, or a vinegar or an oil, I recommend smell it. Smell it, think about it, and taste it. Literally stop what you're doing, close your eyes, whatever you have to do, smell, think about what you're eating, and that's how you develop your palate. So down the road, you're sitting in a restaurant and you taste a dish and you know right away, oh, that's cinnamon. Oh, there's a vinegar in there. I think it's sherry vinegar. The only way to do that is to train your palate. And how do you train your palate? You gotta taste, you gotta smell. You also need to stop and think about that and remember. So that's what I mean by training your palate. I think that's really important. Take time to do things that you necessarily didn't have time to before, like sharpening your knife. There's hundreds of excellent videos. Go on YouTube, learn how to sharpen your knife, train yourself, invest in yourself. You can reach out. We need to stay connected, right? And this is part of the reason why we're doing these videos. We need to stay connected as a community of chefs and cooks. You don't have to just go on social media. You don't have to just post photos and dishes of what you're doing, which is great. I got nothing to say bad about that, but you can also pick up the phone and call, maybe a chef friend that you used to work with, and stay connected in other ways and share stories and what are you working on? What do we think the next 5 years is going to look like? Maybe let's start focusing on those things so that we're ahead of the game once things reopen. One way I like to stay connected is going to the farmer's market. One of my absolute favorite things to do. So I was at the market the other day and found some beautiful eggs, some great cheese, and it got me thinking about my favorite breakfast item, the omelet. So I remember being an apprentice and working in a hotel in a buffet line and having to do endless amount of omelets on Sunday morning brunch. And it took me a while. Eventually, after many failures, I ended up getting pretty good at it. At least I thought I did anyway, but I found a better way. So what you're gonna need for this is a non-stick pan, and I mean like a real non-stick pan. One that hasn't had any metal tongs in it or anything like that. You gotta treat that really well. So just using rubber in there. You can take a little bit of oil and just brush it around. And the other thing, if you have a chance to get one that's a little bit shorter, that way you can get in there with your rubber spatula and then fold over your egg a lot easier. Let me show you how to make a classy omelet. Here's what you're going to need to make this dish. Got some nice eggs from the farmer's market, Got some hard goat cheese from Blythe, Ontario called Golden Blythe. It's really important not to just support your local restaurants, but also your local producers. I've taken that same Golden Blythe cheese, grated it, and baked it in the oven at about 350 until it was golden brown, so we get some crispy components for the dish. Here I've taken some zucchini and sun-dried tomatoes, cut them really small, brunoise, and sauteed them with a touch of garlic. That's going to be for inside of the omelet. And then I've taken that same tomato and zucchini mixture and just added some olive oil and some sherry vinegar to it. And lastly, I have just a touch of olive oil that we're going to brush on the omelet when it's finished. Here's 2 eggs that have been whisked ahead of time. You'll notice all of these air bubbles on top. What you'd like to do is take a spoon and just take them off of the surface. The reason we do that is so that we have a nice clean surface on our omelet and prevent any holes. Take your eggs, put them in a pan on a low heat. You want just enough to cover the bottom of the pan, almost like a crepe. Okay, so you can just move those eggs around. And that's it. Right now you're just going to concentrate on making sure that it's even. Sometimes stoves are a little bit uneven, so if you see the egg kind of piling up in one area, you may want to tilt the pan slightly. Think about making a crepe almost. And then make sure this is on low heat. A good quality French omelet, you want it to be without any color on it. Take the tomato and zucchini mixture, place it on the eggs. You don't want too much, just enough to cover it with a very, very thin layer. Gently press it around. If you're too aggressive with this, you risk breaking the eggs. So very delicate. Okay, I'm gonna get a little bit more on there. Take your time. Make sure it's nice and even so you get a nice tight roll at the end. A light grating of cheese on top. Make sure you get everywhere. This not only for flavor, but to hold everything together. Take a rubber spatula and just gently get under there. You can use your hands for this. It's probably the best way of doing it. And just roll it like a pinwheel. Tip it out onto the cutting board as you're rolling it. And just let it sit for a minute. Brush it lightly with some olive oil for flavor, and then it's also going to give it a really nice shine. We're going to trim this up now. And then with the end pieces, we can trim those as well and use those. Why not? When you go to plate, make sure you use a flat spatula. You just gently place it down. I'm going to put a little salad with this dish. So I've got some different lettuces, some endive, some red oak. I've also got some shaved zucchinis here, as well as some preserved chilies. I'm going to mix those just with some olive oil and red wine vinegar, a pinch of salt. Take our salad leaves, dress them on the plate. Okay, we've got some of our, this is the filling with just a little bit of olive oil to stretch it out a bit. We can put a little bit of this, a bit on top. Then we've got some of that same cheese that we baked in the oven. Has some crispy garnishes.